Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Hello Gamer Nation and welcome to Season 2 of the Dice Pool Podcast live play series. I'm your host Ian Houlihan, better known as GM Hurley. This is an actual play podcast using the GeneSys Role Playing Game by Fantasy Flight Games. This season, our adventures will be set in the fantasy mage-punk setting of Night's Edge, a setting developed by the hosts of the Dice Pool Podcast. If you wish to learn more about this setting, we recommend listening to episodes 6 and 7 of the Dice Pool Podcast, where we create and develop the world on the show. Now, you should be very familiar with our setting by now, but if this is your first episode, we suggest stopping here and going back to listen to this season from episode 1. It's a great series, and we think you'll like it as much as we've had putting it together. Now, this is the 5th part of a multi-part story arc, so stay tuned to social media for future episode announcements by searching at Dice Pool Podcast or visiting us on the web at thedicepoolpodcast.com. In our previous episode, the heroes arrived at Shade Moon and were brought before its leader, Octavius Magnuson. After a tense negotiation, the crew agreed to take an ancient vampire's coffin to a mysterious benefactor hiding in the murky depths of the Night's Edge. Once delivered, the crew were informed that they would be given an item Lady Zelria seeks. The item the crew were tasked to collect in the first place. Now our heroes must face an uncertain journey into the inky depths of the Night's Edge. What dwells in that darkness between Shade Moon and their destination, and what waits the crew once they arrive? Let's find out in the next exciting chapter of Night's Edge, Voyage of Calamity. Alright, so welcome back to the 5th chapter of The Voyage of Calamity, where our crew is members of a lightning trawler called Calamity. And who is our crew? I'm glad that you asked that question. Mike, perhaps you'd like to tell us your character.
I am playing Artimis Gristlemore. He is a berserker werewolf who just happens to be the captain of the Calamity.
Martin.
I'm playing Jerrico Runetide, a scholar and a spell slinger.
Nice. Caitlin.
I'm playing Jonah Bonnie, who is a shade-touched sneaky sneak.
Sneaky sneak. I'll never get over that. And Madeline.
I'm playing Anora Steelclaw, a blind attuned human who happens to pilot the ship.
Right. Okay, so as we've done after each episode, I'm going to ask you a question based on your characters' responses. So, Caitlin, what do you most miss about home? What does she most missed about home?
So I actually don't think Bonnie's really ever had a home. So I think what she would actually miss is actually not so much missing a home, but there's actually a bit of something missing from her that she doesn't know what that home is. So that's what she's missed. She hears other people talk about, all the, back at the old homestead and all that kind of stuff. And she doesn't have that. She doesn't know what it's like to even miss it. So it's just like this void of no belonging anywhere. So it's not so much anything that she can really miss because she has no concept of what it would even be like to have a home.
Mike?
Well, I guess Artemis would be very similar to Bonnie in the fact that he never really had a home himself. He's always been a bit of a vagabond. So I guess the closest equivalent would be he misses his pack, and the pack which gave up their name and joined another pack, left him all alone. So I guess he misses that sort of kindred spirit you'd have in a pack. But he's moved on and he's filled that with the crew of the ship, essentially.
Madeline, what about Anora? What does she most miss about home?
So Anora misses her old crew, a pack of werewolves, and what she misses most is meal times, because that's when everyone on the ship had to get together and all just be together, sharing a meal and laughs and retelling of stories. It's something that she missed most.
Okay. Jerrico, what do you miss most about home?
Jerrico misses sitting by the fire, of an evening with his father, and he'd tell him about all the stories, his adventures when he was younger, traveling about and seeing the world. But kind of he's living that now. And so he's getting to have his own adventures.
Interesting. And I guess your home would now be the Calamity for the best part.
For the most part, yeah.
That could probably be said for all of us, really.
Indeed. All right. So last time we had a situation where you managed to teleport through to the heart of Shade Moon, which is the home of Octavius Magnuson, who is the leader of the, for want of a better term, the underworld, where you can get all manner of things. And he made you an offer, which you accepted, to transport an artifact from the Shade Moon to a specific location, which you've been given the heading of, and to deliver it to one of his associates, who he said not to aggravate. And unfortunately, that particular artifact was a coffin, specifically a coffin of a vampire, which put the crew on edge. So you've been given this, you've brought it on board the Calamity, and they are preparing the teleportation cannon to catapult you back into the murky darkness of below the Night's Edge, obviously leaving the safety of Shade Moon. Not only the safety of, obviously, Shade Moon protects the whereabouts of this particular item, but means that it will be on board the Calamity and it won't have that protection, which will be interesting. So, what would you guys like to do? Is there anything you'd like to do before you leave the safety of Shade Moon?
I would like to talk to the captain. We got a little bit of funds. It would be terrible if we didn't quite make it to our destination because we were waylaid. Perhaps we might invest in purchasing some magical wards, an attuned item to protect against scrying. Maybe Shade Moon has something of that. I mean, you can find anything here.
I don't know what you just said, but I think it's vital to the importance of our ship. So yes, go out and fetch it and see if you can acquire it.
Yes, so
cheap as possible.
But okay.
There's no point doing this mission if we're not making any cash.
That's true. All right. he'll gather some stones to go out and purchase. How much would something like that cost?
Something like that would be quite expensive for a permanent. However, you could probably...
It wouldn't need to be permanent. I would just need to be able to cast a barrier spell that can protect against magic. So I could, reflect it.
Sure.
Oh, I have an idea. It might be a little bit grim, but I'll throw it out there. The Shade Moon has slave markets. Maybe they've got a slave wizard who has to put up a just shackle them near their coffin so they have a scrying bubble around them.
He has to constantly scry the whole time.
Interesting.
So they could
Might
try
not
and counterspell.
Maybe it's just an attuned human.
Just an attuned human, yeah. He's for that one purpose.
Yep.
Actually, you know what? We can story point that and have that as a thing.
No, we can't.
Here's another
Okay,
idea to throw at you.
Yep.
Near Nora's sort of deprivation pod thing, wouldn't it be sort of her amount of energy that she uses to go her attunement through the ship? Couldn't that conceal?
I could probably give some setback to anyone trying
Certainly.
to scry it because there's a lot of magic going on.
Or we can put the coffin in the attunement pod
Yeah, we can do that too.
for total concealment. What could go wrong?
Oh yeah, there's
hold on,
nothing
let
wrong
me-
with
let-
having a vampire spirit
looks
being able
like,
to control the ship.
So is that what you're going to do?
Well,
I'm
okay,
trying.
let's do it. A magic
You're a little too keen
Yeah,
right there. So what's going to do?
The GM is a little too excited.
probably cost like 400 stones.
Yes.
For a magic implement that would be capable of casting this spell.
Yep, that sounds fair.
So we could do that, and I could. Well, actually, perhaps Anora, because it'd be more your specialty, could cast this spell. And then you would take up one of your maneuvers to maintain it constantly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you spend the gold to buy said item?
Yep.
Okay, well, firstly, you have to, because of rarity, you do need to locate it first. So I'm going to get you to make a streetwise roll
Can someone else make this?
I can give it a go.
for
Yep.
to
Wait.
locate this particular item.
Wait.
Why?
Do you really want me to give it a go?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I will come with you though, because I need to tell you what it is you need, so you'll get a boost.
Yeah, that is true.
Would it be
Because you've been rolling so well this season.
I know. I've been role playing my character, my unlucky character.
Would it be streetwise negotiation?
It would be
It's illegal.
streetwise.
Because this
It's
is
illegal.
where we
Streetwise
are.
Streetwise to locate it.
Yep,
Yep.
Negotiation to buy it.
correct.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll come to them because I'm good at negotiating things.
Cool.
Want this cheap now?
All right, so you head off while they're obviously preparing the vessel, while they're preparing the Calamity for sale. You is that what they call it? Would be it'd still be called sale. So you head off into the marketplace. So it's going to be a hard check. So that's going to be 3 purple dice.
Can we be assisting for boosts?
I'll allow 1 boost.
Yeah. Well, I'll
In
be
this sort
going
of circumstance?
with. Of course, this doesn't make it completely immune to scrying. It will just make it more difficult for anyone trying to...
Absolutely. Now, before you make the check, though, okay, because, these sorts of things are super rare. So, yes, you can flip a story point.
No, you can't reach. You can't flip it, so that's a shame.
Are you trying to get her to do a bad roll?
Story of my life. I'm so lonely.
Oh, it's a blank on the red. It's a good sign. Look
It's
on
a wash, isn't
look
it?
on Caitlin's face is not a good sign.
we did not locate this.
You did not particularly...
I managed to navigate our way back to the ship.
Okay, second call of action. Let's go to the slave market.
No, I don't feel good about
Oh, no.
Heading off to the slave market. Interesting.
this. I think your line of reasoning on this is that we can purchase an attuned person to consistently try and counterspell.
Yes.
A slave. I don't know how I feel about that on our ship, sir.
Well, there's always the short exit. The gangplank off.
But would you have issues with that being like high nobility? Wouldn't slaves kind of be a commonplace
thing?
around your background?
No,
Could- no,
definitely not
no.
on Lakeport.
Oh, okay, not on Lakeport.
But we're
Maybe
not
in
on
certain,
Lakeport.
maybe on other places.
I think it'd definitely be
Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
other places. Like slave trading would be a massive.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be a thing back
But-
in this day.
But I don't think that Lakeport specifically.
No,
They probably
is-
no, let's face it, they have indentured slaves, which they get paid a ration
Yes,
every
but
day,
it's
and they don't
different.
call it slavery.
But it's different.
No, that's right.
Exactly. So it's not to say when we pay them a penny a day, we provide them a place to stay, we provide them a place to sleep. All they have to do is work for us for 65 years. Not enslavement.
At which point the Dice Ball podcast became a political machination. Right.
That's how it was. It's hilarious. I stand against slavery. Love indenturement, though. Great. Clear consciousnness about that.
Too real, man.
All right. So imagine we go to one of the slave markets. Imagine Shadeport would have heaps of them, and some of them more nefarious than others. So we're not going to go too nefarious because I imagine they might get pretty horrible to wander about in. But we'll try and track down a particular place where they specialise in people of this nature, of spellcasters and whatnot, who will be put on ships. Because I'd imagine, like in some instances, a ship may require a new seer to pilot. So pirates and unsort of savoury people like ourselves would come here and acquire a new crew member to be a part of their ship, voluntarily or involuntarily on their behalf. So, what sort of check are we looking at to try and sort this out?
To locate somebody like that, look, I would suggest that Streetwise again would be the most appropriate. For a person, however, I'm thinking the difficulty is only going to be 2 purple dice. I'm thinking...
Okay. I'm going to use... I'll make the check with my skullduggery,
Right.
which is based off my cunning.
Skullduggery.
So, not skullduggery, sorry, streetwise, which is based off cunning. My cunning is only 2. However, I am going to use my once per session ability to use my brawn. So, I'm going to make myself a force of nature for the slave market, and I'm being very unsubtle. And I'm just yelling out what I want to every vendor that I walk past. Using the same sort of way I command the ship of coercion, I'm looking for purchases by just sheer brute force of nature.
Right, it's like you're grabbing one person and going, "Are you what I want?
Are you the slave that I am after?" No, sir. Good. Point me the right way.
The crowds don't get in your way. You just shove them.
That's it. All right. Difficulty was 2, you said?
It's just 2 purple dice for this
I
one.
might upgrade this because it is somewhat important.
That's okay, because you can leave that there.
That's special.
And you can have a challenge die as well.
Okay. Is anyone help me in this?
Yes, I'll help you find someone of quality.
Oh,
Okay.
looks like now your hands are dirty too, buddy.
Right, well, look, he's reluctant, so I'm going to give you a setback die as well.
Anyone else?
Can I use my coercion to get him to not be reluctant?
I did. No.
What?
I was going to say I had 3 advantages with the last one, but
Oh,
I didn't.
Yeah,
There you go.
no, that works.
Perfect.
Just give maybe a boost or something.
I'd suggest even 2 boost die.
2 boosts. You're pulling us in the right direction. Maybe we ran into someone at the markets who directed us here
Yeah.
and told us to go look for someone here. That's why we
makes
know to
sense.
find.
Absolutely.
And Dice told the story like a narrative does. Actually passed. Success with 3 advantages.
Don't say it with such
I think
gusto, like it's like, oh my god, this never happened.
I think it's
Well,
two successes.
Two
So,
successes.
So I passed my streetwise with 2 successes and 2 advantages.
Nice. Okay. So you managed to find a seer who he's a fairly tall, lanky gentleman. He has a nice one of those sort of feathered caps. I'm trying to remember, what do they call it? Sort of, he's a bit of a dandy.
It's dressed well for a slave.
Yeah, well, he's actually with those
I may be a slave, but I take pride in what I do. No point looking like a shambles.
Although, hold on a second.
Feather is like smacking other slaves in the face as he's walking by.
Well, with the advantages, I was actually suggesting that perhaps that it wasn't a slave that you've managed to find.
That's fair enough.
I'm just thinking about it though. Why do we need a slave? Couldn't I just stand there and dispel or counterspell?
Yeah, but your lightning stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll turn around and say, what?
All right, we found someone. So yeah.
So you don't need my services?
Are you a slave or are you for hire? Make up your mind, boy. What do you want?
Well, I am for hire, yes.
How much?
I would think that 500 gold will suffice.
400 gold. And we provide you with a nice meal every day.
Make a negotiation roll, I'm thinking.
I will. I will.
You will.
All right. What am I opposing my negotiation to with this fine chap?
Well, it would be his cool. And his cool just happens to be 2 greens and a yellow.
That's going to make my check very easy then. 2 greens and a yellow.
Nice try.
Does the yellow come from the feather? That's where the cool is coming from, the feather in his
What
hat.
is this dude doing down here? Like, is he just really socially awkward? It's like it's the best thing to hang out with the slaves. These stats, he should be up at like High Market Street somewhere.
But he also he provides you, because he's quite knowledgeable about such things, so you can have a setback die as well.
I mean, I was going to buy a slave.
Well, as I say, Captain, I could potentially. You may need my services elsewhere, but
Okay. Oh, that was a blank. Gone. Okay, it's 3 successes
Oh,
and a threat.
okay. So he agrees to your offer, but demands that you provide him with one of the birthing suites on the Calamity.
Okay. I'm going to kick the navigator out of her bed because she was all smimey when we left report.
There you go. That's a bit of continuity.
Yeah, it is.
Very good. Excellent.
The captain remembers.
So Talia is quite upset about this scenario, but really she can't do much about it, obviously. But she will no doubt complain to Anora in infinitum for a while.
Does she have to?
she's your friend.
She's your friend.
I'm unwillingly her friend. She has forced her friendship upon me.
She's going to write a nasty letter to her boyfriend.
James.
Oh, James, I was moved from my bunk to make room for a dandy with a fine hat. I do say that the hat was quite fine, so I feel less bad about it.
All right. So she objects, but can't do much about it. The dandy is quite happy with the arrangement, and so he sets up his belongings inside the berth. So everything is all prepared.
What's the dude's name?
So his name is Archibald Sant.
Can we call him Archie for short?
You can call him whatever you want, as long
He'll
as it's
hate
not,
it, though.
as long as it's not late for dinner.
Okay.
All right. So now that you guys are all on board, while they prepare the magical device to get you out beyond the walls of Shade Moon. You might want to get your wounds tended to or something like that.
Yes.
I think that would be a good opportunity to do that. The trip is going to be probably a couple of days, and you will have enough time to recover any sort of strain that you may have suffered at this particular point in time. So you can consider your strain to be leveled back up. However, your wounds, depending on how much time that you would have, that Lionel will be able to attend to those. But if you manage to make it to the heading of where you're going to be going to, if you manage to get there, your wounds will be completely healed. However, your critical injuries, several of you have critical injuries. So that would be Bonnie. You've had yours healed, is that right?
Yes,
So-
certainly have.
Excellent. So it's Jerrico. Is that correct?
Jerrico, yes.
Artemis, did you have any? Okay, no? All
Just
right.
me.
Artemis is just fine.
Awesome. Right, so Jerrico, you have how many?
I have just the one.
Just the one. Okay. And what was the difficulty of said?
Average.
An average one. So that's going to be 2 purple dice. Now we've established that Lionel has he has an intellect of 3, has 2 in medicine, and he has right tools for the job. Wow, there you go. So he has successfully managed to heal your wound, and with 2 successes.
Excellent.
So,
I
or
thank
your
him
critical injury.
I thank him kindly.
Oh, he's more than happy to have attended to your wounds. All that he asks is that you put a good word in with the captain.
I will do.
So once we've sort of all got onto the ship and sort of ready to get going, I'll take Archibald to the berth where he's staying, and there just so happens to be a coffin in there as well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell our friend Archie and say, Archie, now you'll see here we have a coffin, and you'll probably already worked out what's in that coffin.
As he you can see him sort of stop dead when he is within visualness. Is that a word? That he can see this thing, and he is just eyes wide open. You can see him quite significantly trembling.
Now, Archie, hold the fear, because things may get much worse. So,
How could it get much worse?
well, you see, we're leaving Shadeport, and then scrying that's here, that is protecting the discovery of this coffin, will soon be gone. That's what your job is. So if you fail at your job, others can detect this coffin, and moths drawn to it, like to the lantern. So best be you don't fail in keeping up your scrying and let others know about this coffin.
Keeping up the counter scrying.
The counter scrying.
I'm not feeling very well at all.
Best see Lionel about that.
This is not what I agreed to.
It's exactly what you agreed to, Archie. I'll slap him on the back.
Which catapults him into the room.
Yes.
And then close the door.
Now, I'll leave you two alone for a while, and I'll close the door and go off.
Now he's actually a slave.
That's right.
And you just sort of hear this whimpering. And like, please let me out.
Do your job, Archie.
Neither is silence. All right. You prepare to set sail. What are you doing?
Setting sail.
Could I get Leon to look at my wounds? Is
Lionel.
it Lionel Richie?
I also need to line up for a crit repair.
Crit chop shop.
So you prepare to set sail, and after you've sort of prepared all the rigging and everything like that, suddenly you see some activity going on near the main jetty on the harbour, and I'm guessing that at this point Jerrico is up on deck taking notes furiously with what's actually occurring.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll get you to make a knowledge education roll. Difficulty for this is going to be 4 purple dice.
Any setback or advantage?
You can have a setback die because of distance to see what's going on.
Okay. Let's go. I get a complete wash.
Complete wash. Okay. So you're a little bit far away to sort of see what they're doing, but you've never seen this sort of thing before. And then suddenly this large cannon gets fired, and there's this beam of energy which goes across and hits the wall on the opposite side to where the Calamity is. And suddenly this pinpoint of light at the centre of the beam starts to get larger and larger in a circle. Getting big enough to suddenly fit the Calamity through. and you can see the inky blackness of below the Night's Edge through that portal.
I'll have to get a closer look at that sometime.
So I'm guessing that, Anora, you're making the ship move forward to be on its way.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, so you sort of get that sudden flash of darkness, at which point you teleport through and arrive on the other side of the portal, deep within the Night's Edge. So, you have your heading. Your navigator, who was not very impressed, obviously gets the heading that you were provided by Magnuson, and starts plotting a course, giving instructions to Anora on how to get there. Your journey is long, arduous, and frightening. Shadows move through the clouds, and those who manage to find a moment to get some sleep or some slumber, it's filled with nightmares from what is obviously all around the ship. Now, outside in the inky blackness, lightning strikes flash through the clouds, silhouetting monstrous shapes which are difficult to comprehend. Eventually, after a few days' travel, one of the crew yells down to the deck, indicating that a large approaching object is ahead. Now, as you look forward towards the front of the ship, you see the shape more clearly. The clouds begin to thin, and you can see what appears to be a floating mass of jagged rocks, perhaps a piece of Lux and Tenebris that broke away from the cities as they rose during the Great Fracture. Sitting atop this floating island looks to be the ruins of what you think may be a monastery. Its symbols of the old gods have broken away and are well and truly faded. Once was an exquisite building designed and built by the faithful. It's now nothing more than a broken visage of its former self.
Well, Jerrico will activate my companion, the attuned construct by the name of Millennium. It's gears and feathers and all sorts of things in the shape of a falcon. And it'll start moving and fly up and get a closer look for me.
Sure, he can do that. So you can make a perception roll. Or, if you'd like, a knowledge education or knowledge fractured lands.
It'd be better for me to use knowledge education, but for what I'm doing, I'm going to use perception.
Well, maybe use knowledge education. We get a boost because the bird's giving you a better look.
That's a better idea.
See, it's more.
All right. Well, we'll do that.
Okay, so you're going to use knowledge education with a boost from your falcon.
What difficulty was it?
The difficulty for this is going to be 3 purple dice.
All right. Here we go. I know nothing.
You have never seen this sort of place before. You get a clear view of this particular monastery. But there's iconology which is on there, which is beyond your education at this point.
I do get 2 advantages, though. Do I notice anything important about this landmass?
You certainly do. One of the things that you notice while it is going over is that you can see that there's a part which juts out from the monastery itself. It's almost like a peninsula. Which there looks as though that maybe there might be a spot there that you could safely moor.
Okay, and this is where our heading leads to?
This is where the heading leads to, yes.
Okay, Captain. There is a mooring up ahead. It seems safe. I don't see anyone about.
Very good, Jerrico. We'll guide us in. Take it in slow, Anora.
Alrighty, Captain.
So Anora steers the Calamity closer to the floating island with the mysterious monastery atop And as you begin inching your way closer towards the mooring that Jerrico has indicated, you get this strange sort of feeling as though something is perhaps watching. It doesn't take long for you to get the vessel in closer to the island, until such time as the crew's able to throw grappling hooks over the side to secure the Calamity's position adjacent to the island so that you can debark.
We disembark, yes. Should we scout around a little bit first? No, this is where we are meant to go, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
this was the location.
Rather, this place isn't the best vibe, so I think we should.
okay.
skedaddle
Let's
as quick as
check
possible.
on our guest.
Right, we best go check on Archibald and see how he's done with his friend. He's been locked in there for a couple of days.
Did no one check on it?
I don't think we actually did check on him.
We fed him.
I didn't.
We promised him
I
a
thought you
meal.
were.
We promised him a meal every day, and I'm sure that, yes.
We was taken care of, hopefully.
Yes.
Go open the door.
So you open the door, at which point I will get you to make... Oh, who's coming down there, by the way?
I'd be going down there.
You're going down there?
Yeah.
Just by yourself?
No,
go
he's
on.
going
Okay,
as
so
well.
the two of you? Okay. I'll get each of you to make discipline rolls, thanks.
My favourite.
2 purple dice. And it is a fear check. Alright, so Mike, how did you go?
Artemis failed.
Artemis failed.
He failed.
Okay.
As did Jerrico. But with 2 advantage.
Interesting. So because the two of you have failed, you will both have, for the remainder of this encounter, you will have a setback die each, which remains permanent. However, you've rolled an advantage, or 2 advantages. So because Jerrico has rolled 2 advantages, you can have a boost die to your next check. And with your additional advantage, you can pass that also over to Artemis as well. Yep. You are shocked and
appalled?
shocked and appalled. You can see that the walls are covered in blood.
And Archibald?
Is
On the
over to the
walls?
left and the right and a little bit of the ceiling and whatever else.
That navigator's going to be so mad.
There is
But the
blood everywhere. He has
coffin
been
is here?
clearly dismembered, and the coffin is there. It is all intact.
Is there any blood on the coffin, or is the coffin like completely immaculate?
It is completely immaculate.
I turn and retch onto the floor beside the door.
Artemis would be uneasy about it. Spooked. But nonetheless, job has to be done. So he will grab the coffin. He doesn't want to call anyone else into the cabin because that'll probably cause some morale damage to the crew. So he'll grab the coffin by one end and just drag it out into the deck and
I'll assist once I recover.
close the door behind us, and we'll deal with this later. I'll lock the door and I'll put the key in my pocket.
Right. At which point the Talia bounds up and says, "Can I use my room now?"
No.
Why
It is-
not, Captain?
Because Archibald's still staying in there. He has to take back for the return journey.
Fine. And she turns around and she storms off again.
Talia, wait a moment. You can use. You've been without your room long enough. You can use mine for the time being, and I'll make other arrangements.
Thank you, Jerrico. At least some members of the crew are kind and considerate. She looks at you and sort of spins on her heels and turns
I
on.
feel incredibly guilty after knowing what's inside her room.
All right. So you start taking the coffin
Yes.
up onto deck. It's relatively light considering, but there's a certain uneasiness when you touch it, especially for you, Jerrico. Your kind humans fear these things like there is.
Yeah.
This is their ultimate nightmare, to come this close to a vampire,
All right.
or to at least its coffin.
Yes.
As being a werewolf, Artemis has no real understanding of that. It's like, yep, these are our mortal enemies, but he's still caught up on him being himself and not really understanding human emotions a whole lot.
Yeah.
All right, so you take it up on deck. There are several other crewmen who race to assist as well. So what are your plans at this point?
Were we given an exact point to drop this off?
This is the location. This is sort of the...
Smack bang here?
Yeah.
Obviously, they can't provide exact coordinates. Just a heading of where this particular place
Because
is.
there's a big monastery here.
There is a big
The note
monastery.
doesn't say inside the monastery or anything like that?
It does not.
I want to make this... Artemis is going to make the assumption that we're taking this to the big building that's in the centre, because that sounds like a good place to exchange a spooky coffin.
Seems legit.
It's also a good place to stay if we need to wait for arrival of someone else.
You can, in the distance, you can also see that there is clearly a lightning storm or an arcane storm, which is forming, but it is some distance away.
We probably can't stay here for long.
Okay.
Let's get this off the ship.
Before we go any further, Bonnie, do you think you could scout ahead for us to see what might be in that monastery?
Not a problem, Captain.
So you're heading off into the monastery itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are you walking or are we teleporting?
I figured the crew with the coffin will start moving along towards the monastery, making our way there slowly, whilst Bonnie could, teleport down towards... Because the monastery would have like big archways and stuff like that at the front, because you don't need to go inside of it, just have a sticky beak inside, then teleport back if you need to.
Because this monastery, it's clearly ancient, and it is clearly falling apart. There's like big chunks which are taken out. Part of the facade has all collapsed. But it is clearly some sort of a monastery of sort.
And it's basically this floating rock we're on is essentially just the monastery plus a little bit of land around the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm going to be teleporting up ahead, but I'm going to be trying to be a little bit more discreet about my teleportation and being a little bit more sneaky than just poof, poof, poof everywhere. I'm just going to kind of glide through and teleport.
Sure. Okay. So you can make a stealth check, I'm thinking, is appropriate. So the difficulty for your stealth check is just going to be 2 purple dice. So an average check. And because you're sort of teleporting, you're not sort of expected. So I'm suggesting maybe a boost die, perhaps.
1 success.
Hey.
I know. I did something. Yay.
So it takes you a few minutes to, and we'll suggest 3 points of strain, because to teleport takes some strain. You take a good look around. You happen to find that there seems to be a central room. There's a couple of corridors you've got to go through, but there is a central room that has a tall, armoured individual who is sort of looking out through this hole in the wall out into the abyss. When you sort of teleport, you're pretty sure that you weren't seen. However, this thing sort of turns to you as though that it somehow knew that you were there before you sort of quickly teleport away. When you look at it, there's almost like it is made of the same black wisp that you leave behind. There's sort of, you see that it is almost, it looks as though that it's floating in midair. It has a massive sword across its back that glows with an arcane ebb. It, as it turns, it has this grotesque face which chills you to the bone. Can you make a discipline roll, please, with 3 difficulty dice, so a hard check? Now, you can also flip one of those story points, and you can upgrade one of those purples to a red. And this is a fear-based check.
Oh, it was nearly going to be a triumph. And then it... One success and 2 threats.
Okay. So the 2 threat, you automatically take 2 strain, but you aren't sort of affected by this fearful presence that this particular creature has. You're not quite sure what it is, but whatever it is, it's frightening. At which point you quickly teleport away. But before that, you notice that there is a small group of... they look as though that maybe they are priests or something like that. They are completely motionless. And they... there's about... there's probably a good dozen of them, which are all centered around this something on a pedestal that looks like a book of some sort, but they're in quiet meditation, but they're not moving at all.
Okay. So I teleport back to the group, and as I teleport back, it's almost like I keep in pace with walking, so it's like teleport, but I'm like walking as if I was there all along. And I just go to the captain. Captain, it looks like we've got one major person in there. When I say major, you'll need to prepare yourself as well as the rest of the crew will need to prepare themselves. It's not a pretty sight. Very typical for the Shade World. And 12 people surrounded by a book. We are grossly outnumbered.
Maybe they're who we're supposed to be meeting.
I'd say so. There's no one else in there. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be friendly.
No, that's true. We have little choice. We've come this far. Who else in the crew could come along?
I think it just needs to be the main crew. The rest, everyone needs to keep the ship ready in case we need to make a quick escape.
So Artemis will give the order for everyone to stay at the ship, and us 4 will trudge along and sort this out. And I'll give... I like to think that Lionel's like the most senior out of everyone that's on the ship.
Yep.
So I'll say to him, basically, if we don't return within half an hour, or if fighting starts, just go.
Right. Okay. So you soon head off into the monastery using the directions that Bonnie had provided from when she scouted ahead. You soon disappear into the undergrowth and the ruined surrounds as you disappear from the cruise site. Now, you make your way through the winding collapsed tunnels of the monastery, and eventually you come to an archway which leads into the room that Bonnie saw the priests and the strange floating creature within. And you can see this strange looking writing around the archway itself. And you can see beyond that there is a pedestal which has what looks like a book of some sort, which is in the middle of the pedestal, and it's open. There are around about 12 or so priests, or they look like priests. The cloaks that they had over their cowls, they have their faces bent, or their heads bent in prayer. They clearly, you can hear a faint chant in the distance as well, which is clearly coming from them, but it is quite faint. Beyond that, you can see there's a dais where it looks as though that's where in ancient times gone past that there would be the head priest would be issuing his sermon from the top of this dais. Standing in the silhouetted by the darkness You can see that there is this tall armoured figure with a billowing cloak, but instead of a solid matter as far as the material, it is just this wispy sort of darkness, similar to what you might see from Bonnie when she teleports between places or when she moves. But whatever this thing is, you can see that it's clearly completely made of it.
Right.
What are you doing?
Do I know what this thing is?
I would suggest you can make a knowledge fractured lands check.
That might be something better suited for Anora.
Okay, so difficulty for this is just going to be 3 purple dice. Would you like to upgrade the check, perhaps?
Yes, please.
Certainly. Well, you can leave that there. These things are very, very unknown.
And roll this?
By all means.
Do it.
Yeah, buddy.
Did you succeed, though?
Hang on. I failed with a triumph.
Oh, okay. So you don't know what this is. However, what would you like to do with the triumph? And I have a suggestion if you would like me to straighten that.
I know what the writings are as I run my hands over them.
The writings which are on the archway. Good call. Very good. So
Is that your suggestion?
No, it wasn't, but that's okay. We'll go with that. That sounds cooler. All right, so you sense that and detect that writing is an ancient dialect used by the elves. And it's a protection ward, but it looks as though that it's been subverted to be some sort of an alarm.
Okay.
Interesting.
Does it say speak friend and enter here?
I was thinking the same thing.
Belong.
As soon as he said that, I was just like, oh, God, all the rings, all the rings, all the rings.
What's Elvish for friend? No.
All right, so what are you going to do with that information?
So it's ancient language of the elves, and it was a protective rune or protection spell.
Yep.
But it's been averted to be an alarm. Do I know what it's an alarm for?
You're thinking that it may trigger something beyond the archway.
Very vague.
I know it's a little bit vague, but you had a lot more than what you had before.
But it's not enough.
Did you tell the
You could
rest
just
of it?
tell us that there's an
Oh,
alarm.
yeah. All right. These writings on this archway, they're from they're ancient elvish, and they were a protective spell. However, it's now been averted to be an alarm. I don't know what the alarm is for, but
Probably lets whoever's inside know whoever's coming in. That'd be my guess.
Sound reasoning.
So you may need to perhaps dispel that or somehow manipulate it yourselves.
Do we meddle with what we do not understand?
Do we feel that there's a reason to? Aren't we supposed to be dropping it off here?
Exactly. We should just keep push forwards and see how it goes.
wing it.
How far off are we from the group of mysterious figures in the...
In the robes, in the priest robes.
You're in medium range away from them,
Okay, they still haven't noticed us.
and they still haven't noticed you.
Oh, we're sneakier than I thought.
And beyond that, at long range, is
That's the big
where this larger foe is.
It might not necessarily be that we're being sneaky. It could just be that they're incredibly focused.
Yeah, that's true. Well, should we all just push forwards?
We're here to do a job, Captain.
Let's do it.
This is where we were told to go.
So Artemis will move forwards to the threshold of the alarm.
Who's carrying the coffin?
Should we drag him with us?
So it'd be you and me.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so that I'm aware of who's doing what.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Party placement. Awesome. All right.
So to clarify then, you would be at the front, I would be at the back, and I imagine you would be on either side. Not necessarily carrying it, but yeah.
Moral support.
So
helping.
Bonnie is on to the left, Nora is on to the right, and
Yep.
the two of you are sort of on either end of this
Of the
coffin.
Yep.
I'm at the front and Jericho's at the back. So I'll move us towards the alarmed archway and not cross it. And I'll call out, "Ahoy!"
Nothing happens to the people, to the monks or to the priests, which are sort of surrounding the book. The other creature turns quite nonchalantly, looks towards all of you. You notice it's hard to distinguish features at this stage, but this particular creature looks quite distorted from this distance. A booming voice comes across the room and says,
"Bring forth my prize, but be tested before you do."
Whatever happened to don't shoot the messenger?
All right. Is it a written exam or? I'll look at everyone.
Might as well.
Whatever.
We've come this far.
Yeah.
All right. Step across the threshold.
you step across the threshold. As you step across the threshold, the runes which were above the door over the archway, they glow this sickly purple sort of colour, in the same sort of colour that the purple lightning that you harvested what seems like such long ago, and there is like a single clang of a bell that was perhaps a ghost-like sound of a bell that once rang out from the monastery when it used to be intact, at which point all of the priests cease their chant and they all turn, rising up. You notice as their cowls fall down that they are skeletal, and they draw sickles and say in sickly tones,
"You have crossed into our threshold. You have defiled our place of worship. Die, living."
and they start charging towards you. What are you doing?
Roll vigilance.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to the 5th chapter of the 2nd season of the Dice Pool Podcast live play series. We all here at the podcast hope that you've enjoyed listening to it as much as we've had creating it. Now, how will our heroes fare against the hordes of undead priests? And what is this creature made of the myths of Night's Edge? Find out in the final dramatic episode of The Night's Edge, Voyage of Calamity. My thanks go to my players, Caitlin, Martin, Michael and Madeline. It literally was not possible without them. If you have any feedback on our setting or this episode, you can send us a review via iTunes, on Facebook, or send us an email to info@thedicepoolpodcast.com. I'm GM Hurley. Thanks for listening, and remember, the Dice Pool Podcast, where adventure is just a roll away. The Dice Pool Podcast is a proud member of the D20 Radio Network. For more information about the network, visit d20radio.com. This podcast is a fan-generated adventure and is not affiliated with Fantasy Flight Games. The content of this podcast remains the property of the Dice Pool Podcast and is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. The GeneSys Role Playing Game, logo and rules content remain the property of Fantasy Flight Games. Music supplied by Brandon Victor and Toby Wheatley.